You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I've got a heck of an interview subject for you coming up. It is Mr. Graham Bonnet. Graham is one of the greatest rock and roll vocalists of all time, in my opinion. He stood out the front of Yngwie Malmsteen, Steve Vai, Ritchie Blackmore, and so many others that it would take me too long to mention in the introduction here, so why don't we cut to the conversation? But before I do, actually, let me read out the 3 dates, which is actually the reason for the conversation, the 3 dates that Graham is performing in Australia. They're all in June. On Thursday the 6th, he is in Adelaide. Friday the 7th, he's in Melbourne. And Saturday the 8th, he's in Sydney. So let's have a listen to what he has to say. Here we go.
Hey Andrew, it's Giles. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm good, man. Yeah, thanks for calling.
Great, cool. Got Graham here for you. So, sorry we're a couple of minutes late. Feel free to take the full 20 minutes.
Okay, no worries at all. We'll do.
All right, Graham, just come over here. Just got to get him a seat.
No worries.
Okay. Just find me the best spot to do this.
Yeah, I suppose this chair's more comfortable. There you go, right. Hello. Can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
Pretty tired after the Michael Schenker tour, but apart from that, I'm here and I'm okay. Not too bad.
Well, we don't want you to be too tired. You got to look forward to us, right? And
I know. Yeah, it's a long trip over there. I lived there for about 3 years because my ex-wife is from Adelaide.
Oh,
so
wow.
I love Australia. I really do.
Okay, did you live in Adelaide or elsewhere?
No, I've just lived in Adelaide. She was from Adelaide, and her family is from there, and all that kind of thing, and her friends. So it was pretty cool for about 3 years.
Yeah, well, you got one over me then. I've been everywhere except for Adelaide. So you'd be the one for me to talk to.
Adelaide. It's a pretty nice city.
Yeah, and what's the term for people who come from Adelaide? Adelaideans or what have you? I've always noticed they're very culturally inclined, aren't they? They're very artistic.
Oh, they are a bit. Yes, I agree. Yeah. But that's Australians for you, you know.
It is, yeah. Well, we're a pretty diverse nation, I think, as you probably found out. If you were here for 3 years, you sort of got a feel for things, I think.
Yeah. And I played with with a band out there for 3 years while I was away from America. It was pretty cool. But then I got a job back in the States, and I had to travel backwards and forwards, and it wasn't very good. You know, having jet lag permanently, It was a bit impossible.
Yeah, but the thing about Australia is, I think I'm right in saying this. We've always been a very strong territory for you personally, as in other words, musical sales. So and this is before obviously you lived in Australia. What do you attribute that success in Australia to? Can you put it down to anything in particular?
I don't know. I think it was probably my connection with the Bee Gees at first, because they wrote the very first song I ever recorded with my cousin Trevor, Only One Woman. And then, of course, I came along later with Warm Ride, and Baby Blue was written by Bob Dylan, I know. But I think it was because of my Bee Gee connection a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think that helped me along, and I was, in fact, very surprised that anything happened with that song in Australia, the Baby Blue song, because I released it in England way before Australia, and it didn't do anything, and people just ignored it completely. But that's the BBC in England for you.
Yeah.
They weren't very into Graham Bonnet at the time for some reason.
Yeah. Well, we still are. So I hope. If you don't get much English love, mate, come over here again. So there's been.
That anyway. That's great. Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
No, but there's been a really good response to the announcement of the tour, hasn't there? And this has come. The interesting thing that I've noticed here is that when I've noticed some of the chatter online, the younger fans, and that's so important for an artist, isn't it? Because you can get the existing fans and they're going to turn up, but when you get the younger fans coming through who are aware of your history with Rainbow, especially Rainbow, you wouldn't believe the amount of people I talk to online that know about your existence and Rainbow and the wonderful work that you did there with Ritchie. But Alcatrazz, MSG, Michael Schenker, there's heaps of stuff you've done, mate. So again, a bit of a similar question to the last one. Are you aware of your youth audience and the fact that you do have an appeal that stretches across the ages?
Yeah. I mean, for instance, we were touring. Well, I can't remember where we were now, but I mean, some of the kids what was that little town we played? Lafayette, wasn't it? Yeah, Lafayette over here in the States. We played this town, and I was going back to the tour bus, and these kids come up to me. I'm thinking, these are someone's children, and probably with their mums and dads coming to the show, but they actually were coming to the show, and they gave me 3 or 4 albums to sign. One of them being one of my solo albums that did very well in Australia, and Rainbow, and also Alcatrazz. And these kids must have been about, I would imagine, 17 years old, possibly.
Yeah.
And they said to me, "Your music, man, I love you." It was very funny because they're just saying how much they love the music. And I'm thinking, how the hell do these kids know this stuff? But obviously, there's suddenly a resurgence of so-called heavy rock bands. Now there's more interest in Alcatrazz than there was probably back when Alcatrazz first.
I've noticed that.
It's a bit of a drag because now I'm like 195 years old. I wish that had happened when I was still 30, whatever I was, 30 something.
Look, we've both noticed it, and here's my theory, okay, because I do have a theory about these things, and you're in a similar position to Eric Martin from Mr. Big in that you're a universally renowned singer. So if people want to learn how to sing, they eventually arrive at you. They eventually get to the point where they go, okay, he's the guy up the top there. He's the guy. He's an aspirational voice, is what I call you. You've got an aspirational voice. So do you get a lot of that interaction online and with fans, like budding young singers coming up and saying, look, I heard you on record, man. How? How do you do that?
I have, but not too often. But a lot of people. I used to give singing lessons at one point, years ago, many years ago, probably about 20 years ago. I got bored with it because I wasn't very good at it. I'm a very impatient person, and some of these people that came on to sing, to learn how to breathe, sing, whatever, I lost patience with them because they just had no clue. And a lot of them came and said, "How can I sing like you?" I said, "You'll never sing like me because your body's a different shape, your head is a different shape, you won't get the same sound." I'm very lucky that I've got a big head. I mean, in the nicest possible way. I've got a big head and a lot of lung power, which I inherited from my grandfather, who had a huge chest, long arms, and I'm built very much like him. And it all depends on the air, the shape of your head, whatever, you know what I mean. It's a sound box. It's a sound box. And I've tried to... I tried with these people, these, singers in the past, as I said, these singing lessons. I was trying to teach them how to get a similar sound, but it's very hard. It's almost impossible. Unless you want to sing like that, with a really croaky voice, that's easy. Anybody can do that. But to get the actual timbre or timbre, however you want to say it, of the voice, it's the body that that voice comes from. So it'll never be the same. But I mean, people do want to know how I do it. I said a lot of breathing, very deep breaths before I sing, possibly, on certain lines to get the power and the notes. If you don't have the breath, you don't get the notes, which is very obvious, I know, but that's just the way it is. It's a difficult instrument to play. It's not, for me, guitar is easy, compared to singing. I wish I'd been a guitar player and not a singer sometimes, I mean, I play guitar, but I'm not Mr. Lead guitar player. But I've been playing since I was 11, and I always thought that I'd take my guitar playing a bit further. But then when somebody said to me, "You sing well," I thought, "Oh, okay, I'll pursue that." And that's
yeah. That's a really good explanation, actually, because I do host a podcast series, so if it's cool with you, I'll release this as on my podcast series, because it's really important that I think... I've got listeners all over the globe, barely any here in Australia, unfortunately. I don't know how that's worked out, but mainly in the US, actually. And I know there's a lot of aspiring musicians in there, and to hear that from you, mate, should give them... It's a word of encouragement, but it's a solid word of advice. Sage words and wise advice there, so there you go.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Hey,
okay.
I'm gonna punish you a little bit though, because I'm from Brisbane, and there's no bloody Brisbane show. So if I can get down to Sydney, I'll try and get down to that one there. But these 3 shows, man. I mean, in Australia, how long has it been since you've been down here?
Oh, it's a few years now. I was out there with that show that's called what's it called? Countdown. Oh, Countdown. I can't think of the name of the show.
Oh, awesome.
Molly Meldrum's thing.
Yeah.
Countdown show. And we had I came out there. Rick Springfield was the headliner, and there's a whole bunch of other people on the show. But it was grueling. We were traveling in a tour bus. Again, which is not my favorite way to travel, with 2 million other people. But the show was, I don't know how many hours long, but it was very long, big production, the whole thing. And that was about maybe 2007. 2007.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was the last time I was in Australia. performing.
God, the parties after that one would have been fantastic, I imagine. With Molly hosting things.
I didn't join in. I'm now a recovered alcoholic. Well, recovering, because you're always an alcoholic. But I never went to parties because of the temptation of the dreaded drink. But it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all now. I'm way past that now. I don't even want to drink anymore. But that was my downfall a lot of the time. Performing and being punctual, etc., etc. The drink became my lover, and I lost the thing that I really love, and that's my music.
Gosh, okay. God, that's really saying something, because
I was a bit big, that, wasn't
it? Well, look, you've performed with, I can't think of anybody else like you, Graham, because you've performed with probably the greatest guitarists of all time, or certainly, out of the list that you've worked with, you'd probably only need to add Van Halen. I'm talking about rock and metal guitarists, by the way.
Yeah.
But you only need to add Van Halen to your list, and you would have done them all. So just a quick roll call: a very young Yngwie Malmsteen, a very what's the word for Michael Schenker? He's notoriously difficult to be around and work with, I think, and not necessarily even in a bad way. It's just that I think he's very shy, isn't he? That's what I keep hearing from other artists.
But Michael,
yeah,
he is very much so.
Yeah.
He has to keep himself to himself, so to speak.
Yeah, and Steve Vai, and probably the greatest guitar innovator of all time, in my view, being Mr. Ritchie Blackmore. You've worked with them all, but the one that I want to single out is Malmsteen, of course, because he's had the most interesting career. And I've got to say, how did you work with him? I know he was very young back in those days when you worked with him, but his ego through the 80s and 90s was out of control.
Yeah. Well, when he was given the job by our band, Alcatrazz, he was very, very humble and sweetest guy I could ever meet, and wanted to do everything that we wanted, play perfectly, etc., which he did. I was so impressed when he came in and just auditioned with a song we gave him to learn. He just came in and just blew us all away. He was so amazing, And what happened as he played with us more live, he realized that the audience were looking at him. And so the ego began to, grow a little bit. And he realized that he could outplay me because he could turn up to 11. And you can't fight with a guitar. I can't fight with a loud guitar. And someone who's a little bit taller than you. And what you see is how he's playing. You see all the fingers moving up and down, but you don't see what's inside a singer's body, what they do to produce that sound, which, as I was saying before, it's much more difficult to do that than to play a guitar, I can tell you. It's playing a guitar is a piece of piss, to put it mildly. But I can't play like him, I think. But his ego just grew incredibly after about, probably about 6 months after our album was released. He just realized he was the guy that the audience were captivated by. And I quite understood it, because, as I said, you can see what the guy's playing. You go, wow, look how fast that is, and where his hands are going and all the rest of it. And he just became, I thought, I knew he was going to leave. I knew he had his own career up his sleeve somewhere or other, and our manager at the time kind of went along with him, and eventually Yngwie was fired by the band for certain reasons, and our manager, who was up his backside, was fired too, because he wasn't interested in the band anymore. He was interested in the Yngwie Malmsteen show. Yeah. And he gets to where Yngwie is now, So we can thank Andy Truman for that, for giving him a great career and, a stage to play,
Yeah. Well, the other fellow who was sadly departed, and I've got to say, mate, I think it's one of the great and overlooked vocal drum duos is yourself and Cozy Powell. I love listening to you guys perform together on YouTube, especially some of the live stuff that's on there. But Cozy Powell, he's so criminally underrated, I think, as a drummer, a percussionist, and again, an innovator, a hard rock and heavy metal innovator behind the kit. But mate, what are your recollections of working with him?
Well, he was a close friend, obviously. And he was very much like me. He wanted to just play the music, play it the best he could, and give people hell. And that's what I try to do. It was like nobody sleeps when we're on kind of thing. And Cozy always said, I play like a hooligan. And I tried to sing like a hooligan, like he played, But he was a very close friend. And, he's friends with John Bonham, another great drummer. You know, and it just when he was killed in his car, that was it almost killed me. I got a phone call from Don Airy, and he said to me, Graham, it's the boy. I said, what boy? Coase. What do you mean? He's gone. I said, what? And then he told me what happened. And Coase was in a good time in his life. He was thinking about getting married to his girlfriend, and that's what he was doing. He was driving on his way to see her, and I'm not sure if he was going to propose that day, but he'd been drinking. His safety belt wasn't on, and he was driving 100 and whatever miles an hour like he always did. And he was thrown from his car, and the car landed on top of him. And it's a tragedy, but Coase should have known better, because he was a race car driver as well as a motorcycle driver, racer. Yeah. And he should have known. But he was foolish enough to be drinking and not wear his safety belt, you know. And it breaks my heart still. You know, I'm thinking about him now, and it just brings a tear to my eye a little bit, because he was a very, very close friend. And I loved him like a brother. I really did.
Well, I'm sincerely sorry for the loss of your buddy there, mate. I can tell and hear how important he was to you, mate. But he's important to everybody, frankly. I just don't think people realise out there on the rock and metal and even pop music how much of an influence he's had over everybody. I know, being a musician myself, I can hear the influence of his beats and rhythms even in hip-hop. Can you believe that? It's all over the shop because of the way he held the drumsticks. Was unlike anybody else, and I'm totally in agreement with anybody that if Led Zeppelin decided to soldier on, there was only one guy that could have done that, and that was Coase.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. His sticks were like tree trunks. He used to use very, very heavy sticks. They were like baseball bats almost. You know, very heavy sticks, and a damn hard player. And well, he was the first person I saw that had a hit record in the chart with Race with the Devil, I think it was called.
All right.
Or Dance with the Devil, Race with the Devil, or Dance with the Devil. A drum record. And I remember seeing him on Top of the Pops in 1960, I don't know, 65 or something, maybe 66. And he had this hit record, a drum record, unheard of. You know, a drummer got a hit single, well, you know, and there he was. And then I heard him play on Donovan's music, you know, Hurdy-Gurdy Man, etc.
Yeah, I bet, yeah.
You can spot him a mile off, you know, when you hear those drums on Hurdy-Gurdy Man. There was another one he did with Donovan. I can't remember the song now. But anyway, he was definitely, he had a certain sound, the way he played. He pulled everything back, very soulful. He played the song. He didn't just play the beat. He played
absolutely, yeah.
You know,
the first musical drummer that I reckon.
Exactly.
I mean, I know there's Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich and all these guys, but I just think Coase took it to brand new heights, and that had not been bested.
He was a guy that would come to rehearsals and edit the songs and say, you shouldn't go there with that bit. What should happen here? You know, he would suggest the way the arrangements should go, and that's a musician.
Indeed, yeah. I think I've got time for one more, mate. Is that cool? If I ask you one more question. What gives you the greatest sense of pride and accomplishment when you look over your career? Because, mate, there's a lot of highlights.
Oh, well, I'd have to say Castle Donington when the night I left Rainbow, and 1980 when Coase left the band, and so did I. And that was a great night, but a horrible night because he was leaving. We tried to get him to stay, which we were speaking till like 6 a.m. at a Holiday Inn in Leicestershire, I remember. And he was determined to leave because he was bored with what was going on. He had a better offer. He wanted to do something different. So he decided he would leave. And Don was going to leave. Don Airy was going to leave. And then I did. Don stayed, but I left. And I kind of kick myself now for leaving the band because I think I should have stayed a bit later with Rainbow. But that was Castle Donington 1980 was a huge event that the people that put that thing on didn't think we would get the crowd we did. They expected to get, I believe it was 8,000 people. They thought, we can deal with that. And it ended up being about 100,000 people. It was just the most amazing night I've ever experienced. It really was. I'll never forget it.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah. Mate, you're a legend. You're actually one of those people I had on my bucket list to talk to, and I've done well over 400 at this point. So thanks very much for being available. Thanks for coming down to Australia. And, mate, congratulations and thank you for doing what you're doing with your wonderful career. Your music will live on through the ages.
Oh, thanks, man. That's very kind of you. Thank you.
My pleasure. No worries, mate. All right, good luck with everything.
Yeah, see you soon.
All right, for sure, mate. Catcha.
Right, bye.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, guys. Bye. You've been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that also syndicates for the A-List Online. My name's Andrew Mackay-Smith, and that interview subject was the one and only Graham Bonnet. Thanks so much for listening.